best this year to bless this here mic till your brain burst. Our guest appeared twice and the check will clear 3 times for the same verse. I was always a demon.
Hello everyone, Darko2012 here with Global Government News, and we're back here with part 2 of the real disaster of BP. And we just got done covering this article, which is Goldman Sachs knew of the Gulf oil leak in advance. Did they really know of that? You know, it's hard to say, but they did bet that there'd be a big disaster and that the oil industry would lose a lot of money just prior to the BP explosion. So, and then I talked about how Halliburton basically bought an emergency, here is what they call it, an emergency response oil control company, which is for oil spills. Halliburton bought a company for $232 million just prior to the BP explosion. And then I made the point that BP was aware of the problem that caused the actual explosion prior to the explosion. So there's the little negligence aspect, the legal aspect for BP themselves. And then I'm just cover this article real quick because this is the second time I've heard about this. And this is from the intelhub.com, and this is from June 7th, 2010. It's called Another 9/11, Strange Events in the Gulf. And the gist of this story is that there's a lot of military. There's military, and then there's state and local authorities everywhere in the Gulf and Louisiana and they're keeping out most of the media, and they're not showing what's going on, and that they're either the media, the corporate media that is, you know, basically the same people, powers that be, corporate media, or the big you know, companies, corporations like BP and Goldman Sachs. They look out for each other, and so when something like this happens, they could be under-reporting, or they could be over-reporting. They could be sensationalizing it, making it seem worse than what it really is. But this says, this is from June 7, 2010, and it says, last night on our radio show, The Decompression Session, we broke the updates from a reporter in the Gulf, confirming the presence of troops, not the Coast Guard, in the area. The report has now been confirmed by multiple sources, and it says we are anxiously awaiting for Robert's video and photo evidence. It says that there's reports of no oil on the beaches, and reports that the Coast Guard stated there was no oil on the beaches. At the same time, we're getting reports from local authorities that they're all getting very ill and that there's oil everywhere. After the updates from a reporter, Robert Rutherford, on last night's show, it took a twist. And it says that, and then this reporter, Mr. Vejas, for the St. James News Examiner, called into the show on the 30th, and he said that he was in Louisiana and he passed a roadblock and was stopped by law enforcement. Law enforcement went on to say that he could not go into the area and that the press will be there in 30 minutes. At that point, Richie said he knew it was a staged press event for the corporate media. And then here's something, here's a little nugget of information that us little video commentators sometimes fall on. And here it is right here. He said that he went to go get a bite to eat, and he said the authorities then ushered him and the mainstream media to a small contained area of the beach. They told everyone to stay together, Richie reported. Halliburton was present as well. Less than 1 acre of beach, Richie stated. Military, Coast Guard, and Army were present. There was visible oil in the contained area and in the waters around the area. So you had Halliburton, or Boots and Coots, as the new company that they have there as well. He went on to say how the military was acting very funny and things seemed out of place. The reporter stated how, quote, there was acres and acres of untouched beach as far as the eye could see outside of the contained area. He said if I was to try to leave the contained area or try to cross, I would have been arrested on sight. So a lot of spooky things going on down there. Much like Katrina, with explosions going off by the dams and FEMA cutting power lines. And there's 2 articles that I would like to finish up with. And this one is something that has been covered in the mainstream media for sure, because I saw it but I'm just going to cover just for general GP, general principle, whatever, and it's from ProPublica.org, and it was published on April 30th, 2010. It's titled "Chemicals Meant to Break Up BP Oil Spill Present New Environmental Concerns." And it says the chemicals BP is now relying on to break up the steady flow of leaking oil from the deep below the Gulf of Mexico could create new sets of environmental problems. Well, they will, and that's just, they're not going to make a big deal out of it. And so, you got environmentalists, Greenpeace people, whoever, or people who are generally just, they care about the earth. They have them in a frenzy, especially the environmentalists, though, who usually believe in global warming. Man-made global warming and CO2 and all that good stuff. But yeah, so they're in a frenzy right now, and they're just like, oh, oil in the ocean, and they're asking for government to solve the problem, and then they see this stuff, which is this chemicals that they're using to, quote, disperse the oil and just make it out of sight, out of mind, and then that drives them crazy as well. So, but it says, yeah, these are called dispersants, and I want to make this point right here, right now, because this is something that was in the news right when this thing was like in the middle of it, about 3 weeks ago, maybe longer, but basically what the point I'm trying to make here with this chemical is that they were saying the reason for the weird distributions of the oil in the ocean. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about when they showed photos and video footage of the oil spill in the Gulf. You see kind of a weird type shapes and patterns in the ocean that the oil is making. And they were saying that it was algae. Does anyone remember that? They were saying how mainstream news was reporting that it was being caused by algae or something that's like a natural phenomenon. And then I've also heard that it was just tiny little bubbles. But, I thought about this afterwards, but basically what these things are doing, these chemicals, is that it's out of sight, out of mind. That's all it's doing. It's making the oil drop below the surface so that people don't see it when they, you know what I'm saying? So they don't see it. But it's still there. Just real quick, once they are dispersed, the tiny droplets of oil are more likely to sink or remain suspended in deep waters rather than floating to the surface. And as far as some of the side effects, it's associated with headaches, vomiting, and of course, our eugenicists' favorites, reproductive problems at high doses. So if BP did know that this was going to happen, or Goldman Sachs, or whatever, what are they going to get out of it? Well, I thought that gas prices, I was waiting to see this, according to how economics is supposed to work with supply and demand, if your supply is being depleted, in other words, if there's billions of gallons of oil being spilled into the ocean every hour and every day, then BP's price for their gasoline would go up. But of course, since it is a duopoly, or whatever you want to call it, a nice little fascist economy that we have, they can lose billions and millions of oil, and their prices won't fluctuate at all. Also, they got an opportunity to test this new chemical for future spills that will just basically sink all the oil to the ground, show that on the camera, and say, see, everything's fine. And thirdly, this last point, is that like everything else, what will this do? Well, what does the New World Order want? What does the world government, the powers that be, the elites want? They want a cap and trade bill passed. They want to be able to regulate carbon and CO2 emissions, and this is one of the biggest things that is going to happen prior to them passing this cap and trade or pollution reduction bill. And so it's all about problem, reaction, solution. And if they did create the problem, right now we're in the reaction stage, and then the solution will be upcoming. So let's see. Thanks.